Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for spending your Friday afternoon with us here at the Chicago Council on Global Affairs. My name is Juliette Sorensen. I'm a professor at Loyola University School of Law and the director of Loyola's Rule of Law Institute. And it is my distinct honor and privilege today to be in conversation with Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya here in Chicago. Yes, do applaud. She needs no introduction, so I will be brief. Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya is a Belarusian opposition leader and pro-democracy activist. And indeed, as you know, she has been affirmed as the leader of the opposition in Belarus. Beginning in 2020, when her husband, a potential presidential candidate, was arrested, Svetlana, if I may, mounted her own campaign against Belarus's longstanding dictator, Alexander Lukashenko. Tsikhanouskaya went into exile following Lukashenko's fraudulent declaration of victory after that election, but she continues to advocate for political reform across the international stage. She has met with numerous world leaders and addressed international forums, including the UN Security Council and the European Parliament, and has received several human rights awards for her work, including the Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought. We will start out today's program with a discussion with Mrs. Tsikhanouskaya, after which we will have time for Q&A with the audience. Now, some of you have reached out to me in advance of this afternoon, and I am aware that there are many eager questioners in the audience today. I make two asks of you. The first is, please do not try to pose your question until the Q&A period. We will have one. The second is, I do ask that you listen to our conversation and not repeat questions or ground that I have covered with our special guest. Today's program is on the record. I do want to remind everyone of that. We are broadcasting live. It is being recorded. And finally, the views expressed by speakers that we host here at the Chicago Council are their own and do not reflect the Council's institutional positions. So with that, I will begin. You've been described as an accidental politician, given your unexpected entry into politics and your path to political leadership. Since you first entered Belarus's political scene, what lessons have you learned? And how has your approach to politicking changed as a result?
First of all, before I start, I want to welcome everybody who came today. I really appreciate it. I see many Belarusians here. Thank you for your huge support. And yes, I call myself accidental politician because I have never intended to be on this place. You already told my story, and I had to learn from scratch. You know, I was immediately after revolution was pushed into this political life. But I have to say that for all these years, I'm learning from the best. I'm learning from presidents, prime ministers, ministers, the best experts. And I have to catch all this knowledge, very fast. So what I have learned for these 4 years is that international organizations don't work as they could have worked. I think that international organizations don't use all the tools properly, or maybe it's a lack of political will, but it's difficult for me to explain Belarusians who can't restore justice, for example, in my country, and we rely deeply on international support and assistance and Justice International. I can't explain why these organizations are not working. For example, I just have been in UN General Assembly, and for 4 years we are asking Secretary General Guterres to raise Belarusian question because we have humanitarian disaster in my country, constant repressions for years, people are being detained. We have thousands of political prisoners, hundreds of thousands those who fled Belarus. So it's like Stalin's time, and for Belarusians, it looks like that the world doesn't care. So it's important to understand. Also, what I learned is that I came from dictatorship, and there was one person who always ruled the country. And when you are in democracies, that is, politicians, leaders are changing constantly. It's good for democracy, but it's like you start rediscovering Belarus for new person again, again, and again. It's like you start from the beginning. It's also rather difficult because, and when you can inject any person with Belarusians, so it is easier to communicate, or to get assistance or to get solidarity from this person. And the worst thing that I feel when I meet into world leaders is that when I'm talking, I'm sharing my pain and I see empty eyes. That it means that this person doesn't care about Belarus, maybe about values. You don't know. And it's like also about media. I also realized that if you are, as a country, as movement, as your fight is not in media, so you don't exist for society. You don't exist, and the attention span is so short, and it's so important to raise, to keep Belarus high on the agenda. That's why media is extremely important, and we are trying to develop our Belarusian alternative media, to reach our international partners. So, yeah, and I very often I'm acting by intuition, not knowing all the rules of this, powerful, political world. But and also, we have to be very creative. We have to be very inventive as Belarusians because, we need many unprecedented things to do. For example, maybe we'll talk about this later. I don't know. Many Belarusians in exile, we can't renew our documents, because of Lukashenko's revenge, and we have somehow helped Belarusians to legalize themselves with expired documents. So we decided to launch our own passport of new Belarus, and this is unprecedented project, and it's very difficult to explain. Even to our allies, why it's so important. Because, maybe if we'll do it with you, other nations also will want to do the same. But it's the best solution in our case, because very soon we might have millions of stateless people who can't return home and with expired documents. So we have to think out of the box, and not always democratic world is ready for this.
I want to pick up on your point related to the short attention span of the media and the constraints of the international community. Human rights organizations have reported, and indeed we know to be true, widespread abuses in Belarus, arbitrary detentions, torture under Lukashenko, of which you have painful personal family experience. Is there more that the international community can do to hold Lukashenko and his regime accountable for human rights violations? And what can we do to shine a light on these organizations and keep it squarely fixed there to focus the international community?
Why dictators are using so much violence towards people who are fighting Lukashenko, towards Belarusians, because usually they feel impunity. And that's why it's so important to restore justice, to bring perpetrators to accountability. For years, this regime in Belarus committed many crimes. Crimes against Belarusians, crimes of forced deportation of Belarusians. is dragging our country into the war. It's orchestrating of migration crisis on the borders with our Western neighbors. It's abduction of Ukrainian children. It's hijacking of airplane. And we, all these 4 years, we have been collecting evidence and proofs of these crimes. And we try to launch special investigations for these crimes, to bring Lukashenko to account. We tried ICC, International Court of Justice, ICJ, International Court of Justice and of Criminal Court. Also, we are trying to start cases on universal jurisdiction, and still for 4 years we haven't advanced a lot in this direction because maybe again it's a lack of political will, or Belarus is not in focus, or maybe atrocities in other parts of the world is much worse. So maybe our case is not so cruel, but justice should be justice for everybody. And so again, I can't explain to Belarusians why we don't have laws are not working in my country. There are international system that should work to the whole world, and it doesn't work. So I ask the countries who are friends to Belarusian democratic forces to push our request to launch the special investigation. Lithuania is our nearest neighbor and the best advocate ever for Belarus. They're a pusher, they're helping us a lot. So I want to believe that we will achieve something, in the nearest future. But I want all the countries, to raise the issue of accountability because, dictators see that international instruments are not working. It emboldens them, and they're making crime after crime, knowing that they will not be brought to accountability.
You now do not and indeed cannot return to Belarus. And so you focus your advocacy overseas. What have been the most surprising aspects of leading the opposition movement from outside the country? And how has the Belarusian diaspora contributed to the pro-democracy movement? By the same token, what are some of the challenges that you face when coordinating efforts across borders, both within and without Belarus?
No, I have to underline that our revolution, our uprising was grassroots. And in 2020, Belarusians even didn't need a leader, to conduct them. People were so inventive. People were so self-organized at that moment, and we continue to develop this self-organization. I had to flee Belarus, and I'm trying to do what I can where I am. Of course, a huge part of my fight is work on the international arena, and I'm so proud that Belarus was rediscovered by many nations, because I think that many people thought that Poland ends and Russia starts, and nobody knew about Belarus. It was like gray zone. Everybody thought so. Belarus is under influence of Russia. Maybe they thought we don't have even our national, symbols, language. And in 2020, many countries saw that it's different Belarus exists. And I try to inspire the world, to pay more attention to Belarus, to distinguish Belarusian regime from Belarusian people, to distinguish Russia from Belarus. Don't put us in one basket. But again, our fight is not only fight from exile. One doesn't exclude another, because maybe in exile we might be more visible, more active, despite the fact that relatives of those who are active outside the country, their relatives are in danger. Property of activists, representatives of diaspora is confiscated, their relatives are under attack constantly, but people are doing this. We have those who are in exile who more or less free. We have to fight for ourselves and for those who are in Belarus. But have to say that people in Belarus are also not giving up. Though now it's impossible to go to the rallies or to be vocal because you are sentenced to years and years in prison for, I don't know, speaking Belarusian language, for showing our national symbols, for supporting Ukrainian army, or for solidarity is criminalized. If you supporting families of political prisoners, you also can end in prison. But people are not giving up. People making small communities inside Belarus. People providing us so much information from inside, and even people from the system, from Lukashenko system. They're providing us information how sanctions are being circumvented. They people we call it. Italian strike, when people on enterprises don't work extra what they have to do. So people continue to help political prisoners and spread information. I constantly have communication with Belarusians inside the country. We still have internet, Zoom more or less safe, and people from Belarus calling me. And once a pensioner woman called me and she told, "Look, we are gathering," she lives in a small village, "we are gathering with other pensioners, we are pretending to drink tea, but we are watching alternative extremist video." It's also a form of resistance, and I know donating to our military volunteers in Ukraine or political prisoners is also a form of resistance. You can't demand from the people who live in Gulag some actions. But what I ask people inside the country to do is to keep you safe until the moment comes. Don't lose hope. Don't let this fire inside you to help me with the word. Погаснуть. To disappear, yeah. But of course, since 2020, extremely big role started to play Belarusian diaspora. It became a backbone of advocating Belarus on international arena. They united so much after 2020, and they started to make organizations. We have new diasporas and old diasporas, and here in Chicago is one of the oldest diaspora in the world, and they immediately self-organized, started to promote Belarus, and a huge support to us, and especially American diaspora. They are donating to political prisoners and supporting people a lot, because people who released, for example, because they served already their terms, they're in awful physical, emotional state, and they need rehabilitation. And diaspora is always supportive. Also, sending parcels to families of political prisoners, and spread the word about Belarus is so important. Being in media constantly, to raise the issue. And I'm so grateful, to Belarusians who also for years, passed, and it's sometimes there is desperation, maybe loss of hope, but they're so active, and I admire Belarusians for that.
One other question about the state of the pro-democracy movement within Belarus, which is undertaken, as you say, at great risk and great personal danger. Are activists within Belarus able to organize? Are they able to mobilize, as you say, without jeopardizing their personal safety or becoming disappeared, as too many have in the past?
I think we had experience of 2020 where people immediately self-organized. People not knowing each other, made communities. They gathered in the neighborhoods, singing songs, talking about future of Belarus. It was fantastic, and I'm absolutely sure that now, when the moment comes, it will be also very fast self-organization of people. And already now, as I said, we have small communities. Of course, it's not wide movement in Belarus because KGB infiltrating their people constantly, and then many people are being detained, for being in these communities. So it's like very very small groups, but they're very active. And remember, when the war in Ukraine has started, very fast, Belarusians became partisans. They disrupted railways to slow down Russian equipment going to Ukraine. So we're a very modest but brave nation. But we need, to feel this moment of opportunity again, to raise up. And again, you will see people on the streets, people doing something. What's important because I fully believe in Belarusians, as people, as nation. But what's important to do now is to try split elites in Lukashenko's system. We already, advanced a lot in this direction because, as I said, many people from the system, they provide us with necessary information, knowing that they might be sentenced for 20, 25 years for this. Now, even Lukashenko made a new law that if you are blamed in state treason, and it's about nomenclatura people, you can be brought to the death penalty. So just to frighten people. Lukashenko doesn't trust anybody around, he's shuffling people all the time. So, and just to split elites, we have to show to these elites on which side strength is. If they see that, Lukashenko is very weak, he has just 2, 3, 4 countries who are supporting him, especially Putin. But simultaneously, they see that democratic forces are so active, that democratic forces are recognized on international arena, that democratic world leaders are talking to democratic forces. We managed to formalize relationship with organizations, with the governments. For the first time for the history of the United States, they launched officially strategic dialogue with democratic forces, not with government, and it's a huge achievement. Countries don't send ambassadors to Belarus, but send special envoys, to work with democratic forces of Belarus. We have relationship with the Council of Europe, European Union, European Parliament. So, the biggest democracies in the world see us as partners, and elites also see this, and they understand that at the moment of opportunity, there will be only, two choices: maybe somebody pro-Russian, pro-Lukashenko, or somebody pro-democratic. And if they see strength behind democratic forces, of course, they will be among first who will say, "I always was on your side." So,
And there will be that moment of opportunity. You've mentioned Ukraine, and our conversation would not be complete without a discussion of the complex geopolitics related to the ongoing war there. You have said that the fate of Belarus and Ukraine are intertwined. How has Russia's invasion of Ukraine affected the pro-democracy movement in Belarus, and how might the outcome of that war affect Belarus's democratic aspirations?
I remember the moment when the war has started. Before I was absolutely sure that it might not happen. That's how can we fight against Ukrainians, and the fact that Lukashenko provided our territory for the first attacks to Ukraine, it was shock for us all. And this war could make Belarus pariah to the whole world. But democratic countries already knew different Belarus. They knew that it's Lukashenko's fault that the first missiles have been launched from our country. It's not Belarusian people. And that's why, they just distinguish Belarusians from regime. They don't punish Belarusians. They punish regime with the sanctions for the war. They are trying to help Belarusians as much as possible. Though there are, some issues, with visas, with the lack of scholarships because of the war, because Belarus country co-aggressor. And we again have to advocate and explain that it's Lukashenko, it's not people. Don't punish people for Lukashenko's crimes. Sometimes it works, sometimes not. We have to be maybe active here. And I remember how it was so widely discussed if Belarusian army will participate in this war. So Lukashenko crime is evident, but what about Belarusians? From the very first day, it was understandable that Belarusians have full consensus regarding the war. We were absolutely pro-Ukrainian nation. And the Belarusians, it was, despite of repressions, it was huge rally in Belarus for Ukraine, and many people, of course, have been detained for this. And now, if you singing Ukrainian song or showing Ukrainian flag in Belarus, you will be detained for this. You are considered to be enemy. And our soldiers, it was understandable from the beginning, will not participate because we can't imagine how we can fight against Ukrainians. And even if Lukashenko has ordered, Belarusians would defect, would change sides, would hide, but not fight with our brothers and sisters, because it's not understandable why you have to die or to be killed for ambitions of two usurpers. Ukrainians are our neighbors. Our languages are very similar, and we understand that the fate of Ukraine and Belarus intertwined, as you told, because Russia doesn't see no Ukraine, no my country as separate, independent states. They look at us as naughty children, whom they want to back to the family. And we Belarusians and Ukrainians, we are European nations. Maybe you don't know that only 200 years we are under influence of Russia. Before, we were fully European nation for centuries. And we want to return to our roots. We want to return to European family of countries. This is our choice. Why somebody has the right to drag us back into the Soviet Union time. So, and of course now, I know that this moment of opportunity we are talking so much about, it's about, in huge extent, victory of Ukraine. Because when Ukraine wins, at that moment, it will be weakened Putin, hence it will be weakened Lukashenko, and we will do our job. And so that's why advocating for Belarus, of course, I'm putting victory of Ukraine as one of the priorities, advocating to give Ukrainians everything they need to win this war, because they're not just fighting for the piece of land. They are fighting against brutal evil, and we have to, and it's actually, moral obligation of every country to support Ukrainians and Belarusians in this fight. And that till now, Belarusians donating so much to Ukrainians. We can't, as democratic movement, we don't have money to buy tanks or supply Ukraine with money or military equipment, but people donating a lot to the soldiers. And also Belarusian regiment who are fighting on Ukrainian side is the biggest one. We have Kostuś-Kalinovsky regiment, and our Belarusians are fighting on the front lines of the battlefield.
With great courage. So you mentioned 200 years in which the relations between Belarus and Russia have been complex, close. There are currently, sure, 200 years is a small number when you think about human civilization, but it is the last 2 centuries. There are complex economic relations at this point in time, reliance on energy, and of course the existing political ties. When you look to the future, how do you envision a democratic Belarus navigating a relationship with Moscow while building stronger connections and perhaps returning to those older connections with the West?
I very often hear from democratic politicians that we are so deeply tied, with Russia that we can't cut these ties. But it's a huge myth that Belarus will not survive without Russia. Somehow Finland survived. Somehow Lithuania survived. Why can't we? We have wonderful, hard-working nation. And if to give Belarusians opportunity, we will make our country prosperous. But of course, I understand, the dependence that Lukashenko direct our country in full dependence on Russia, and somehow we have to cut this dependence. So already now, we are thinking about diversifying this gas and oil dependency. We are thinking about green economy. We are discussing with the international partners already now what can be done with Belarus, how to where we can take, this fuel for Belarus. And there, Moldova. Take Moldova as an example. They, after the beginning of the war, they also managed to do this. We are trying to, we are working actually on dragging investments into future Belarus. We are explaining to big businesses why it will be important to invest in my country after the changes, where rule of law prevails and there is no danger to open companies. Also, it's very important to invest into Belarusian businesses abroad. I'm totally sure that those businesses that have been ruined by Lukashenko's regime after 2020 and before, that had to flee also Belarus and restart their business abroad, they, even if they will not return, but they will open new businesses in my country. So what else is important is national identity. For 200 years, Russia was erasing everything Belarusian from Belarus. Now Lukashenko is doing the same. He always was the most pro-Russian person in Belarus. He never spoke Belarusian language. He never cared about Belarusian national identity. And it's true that majority of Belarusians are speaking Russian only because it was policy of dictator. And now, after 2020, I see how interest in everything Belarusian increased so much. People understand meaning of national identity. We have to save everything Belarusian. We have to save what we have and what differs us from Russia. And this is how we have to work on this now, because and it will be difficult. I never say to Belarusians that after changes everything will be paradise, in Belarus. It will be extremely difficult times, because I remember how Lithuania was suffering because after they gained independence, it was very difficult. But when you strive for freedom, when you strive for independence, it's also a type of suffering. You are ready, to suffer, but you know that you are doing this for a better future.
So as you think about the path forward, institutions have been shaped by Lukashenko. In your opinion, what must be done in terms of reconstruction and reform to establish rule of law? And I know you were recently at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions in Belarus, and if there are any specific reforms or actions that you believe are necessary to begin addressing those challenges.
Absolutely agree that institutions should be very strong in democratic world, and but also constitution. Now we have a super presidential republic according to Lukashenko's constitution, and the first thing we will have to do is change constitution, to divide powers. It's extremely important. Then all the institutions that this regime has been building for 30 years, it's like Soviet-type institutions, and all the nomenclatura people, got used to working in such kind of institutions. What's important for me now to do be to educate new cadre, like new professionals, new staff who know how democratic institutions work, what it is. We are asking parliaments and governments to invite our young leaders, young people, or maybe even people from nomenclatura who defected after 2020, for internships, for them to see, the systems from inside. And already, now our specialists are shaping, how these institutions, will work in New Belarus. But also a very important message, because Lukashenko is trying to persuade our nomenclatura that surrounds him now that, look, this democratically oriented people will come, they will hand you on the lamps, they will ruin you, put you in jails. We will need all Belarusians who haven't committed hard crimes, heavy crimes, they can continue to work in democratic Belarus. We will need all these people. Maybe we'll have to go through reconciliation process, but these institutions, the country is for everybody. And we also have to deliver this message. We now I feel the lack of specialists, even those whom we need in democratic society. So it also will take time for Belarusians to reorient their vision, to more pro-European, pro-democratic. But believe me, after free and fair elections, in Belarus, people will adjust, to democracy very fast. We always have been democratic people, but we didn't know about this.
And so, until that day comes, my final question before we turn to the audience for questions. In a time when some Belarusians within and without the country find it scary to speak up, find it challenging to keep up their hopes, what do you do to keep hope alive for yourself? And what message would you share with the people of your country to keep hope alive?
I'm taking my inspiration from Belarusians, first of all, because I see that even in the moments of frustration or in the moments when it seems that nothing is going to change, Belarusians continue to work, because fight is not about hope. Fight is about everyday work, about your everyday contribution. Even small steps matter, and I see how Belarusians continue to do this. I know that I'm not alone. I know that Belarusians will not give up, after 2020. They will not forget, they will not forgive this dictatorship. And also my personal driver is Belarusian political prisoners, because going to bed with the same thoughts about people behind the bars. I have my personal pain is my husband, but I'm thinking about thousands of people behind the bars. And also waking up with the same thoughts, how to help. We have people in critical health states. It's people with cancer, people with diabetes, people who are literally dying, and we are trying to get out these people from jails on humanitarian track. To divide humanitarian track and political. Of course, I'm so angry with this. I can't understand how people can be so cruel. And this anger, it transforms into energy to continue. My children asking me every day when my daddy, our daddy, will return home. It's also push you forward. It also, do you think I don't have moments of desperation, or do you think I'm not exhausted time to time? Of course I am, but that you have such a huge support from Belarusians. That people inside prisons, they rely on those who on freedom now, and they continue to fight, because they don't have other way out from prisons. They believe in us. They believe in international justice. They believe in international community, that Belarusian political prisoners will not be forgotten and will be in focus, constantly, and will do everything possible to release people through weakening of the regime and strengthening Belarusian democratic forces. And this is very painful thoughts. But this is what don't let you to return to ordinary normal life. It would be so comfortable, to forget and enjoy life in democratic world, but not. And I see how Belarusian diaspora, even though they haven't maybe been in Belarus for many years, but 2020 and political prisoners mobilized them so much, and they sacrificed time, sacrificed their professionalism, provide money, to our fight, and it's fantastic. So Belarusians and political prisoners, my biggest drivers. And also I see, I have met so many people from the democratic world, who to whom destiny of Belarus is important. And I realized that if in any institution or organization or government, parliament, NGO, at least one person who really cares, this organization and government will work and will do something for our country.
We have 19 minutes for questions from the audience. Who has the first question? Yes. Yes, please. And you can see a mic there, so it would be helpful if folks, can go to the microphone. Thank you.
I'm really glad to see Svetlana here in Chicago. Thank you for coming. So 2025 is around the corner. It's going to be exactly 5 years since you have been elected as the president of Belarus by Belarusian people. And it's also the year when your presidential term expires. I think we can all agree in this room that you will stay as a leader of Belarus until new democratic Belarus happens. But at the same time, we have elections here in the United States. Biden administration is leaving in January of 2025. And no matter what candidate is going to be the next in the office, do you think they'll recognize you as a leader of Belarus officially? And have you been in touch with any of those candidates, like either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump? Thank you.
First of all, I want to address to the Americans, who are here. You have elections very soon, free and fair. This is what Belarusians haven't seen for 30 years. And I want to say that I'm envy, because it's such a luxury not to know who will be your next president. And as for, let's start with the elections in Belarus, so-called elections, because what's this ritual that Lukashenko is going to conduct has nothing in common with elections. It will be a reappointment of Lukashenko by Lukashenko. Believe me, our democratic partners, powerful leaders, powerful countries, they will not, after Lukashenko's elections, they will not okay, 5 years passed, we recognize Lukashenko again. Of course not. He's illegitimate and he will continue to be so before free and fair elections. As for me, I hear time to time, and I'm absolutely sure that propagandists will intensify this narrative that Tikhanovskaya mandate will end in 2025. And we have to understand what is legitimacy. What is it about? It's about trust. If people of Belarus will continue to trust me, to be with me, to coordinate with me, to contribute to the course I'm leading. So this is recognition. I don't need other recognition. I don't need these titles. And democratic world, that we installed good relationship with, they also will not say, okay, after so-called Lukashenko's elections, we don't recognize you. Of course, it will not happen, because it's about relationship, it's about trust again. And we have some contacts with Trump's administration. They are not on like very high level, but we. For these 4 years, we are enjoying bipartisan support, and of course, we will work with any administration. I want to believe that policy towards Belarus will not change because we have huge support in Senate and in present Biden's administration, who very tough, on dictators. But I think that. Again, it's about democracy. I understand that Trump is very his narratives differ from Biden's narratives regarding Ukraine. That is extremely important for us. But again, everything in this country depends on the people, and it is people who are ruling their leadership. So it is for you, your task to work with your leadership that policy of the USA will not change. If the victory of Ukraine, if the victory if defeat of dictators is important for you, so believe me, the USA will not change the policy regarding democracy. So yeah, we will work with any administration, and I think that we'll also good relationship with any.
Thank you, Svetlana.
I'm going to add one point to that as the next questioner is coming to the microphone. While our presidential elections in the United States have the tendency to suck all of the air out of the room, please remember that there is also a congressional election in November. And it is the best way to elevate attention to international issues. Your members of Congress are responsive to you, their constituents. It is a relatively small number of constituents when we're talking about the federal government. So please, if the question of a democratic Belarus is an issue that matters to you, I urge you to write your member of Congress. They read those letters, they file those letters, they know how many people are writing about foreign affairs and democracy overseas. And I cannot tell you how much it matters, and I have seen incremental change over time with human rights and democracy overseas because of people mobilizing to reach out to their members of Congress, all the more so in an election season. Please.
Thank you so much, dear Madam President. I'm really grateful and blessed to be here. So thank you so much, the Chicago Council of Global Affairs, to make that happen. And my question actually is about the recent opening of the USAID office in Vilnius. You already mentioned the collaboration and support of democratic powers all over the world, and USAID and is a perfect example how to actually pursue it. What do you think are the key priority, the key project which could be implemented to support the well-being of those Belarusians who are also thriving for the freedom and actually the well-being of the nation?
Yeah, so USAID has opened office in Vilnius, Lithuania, where we do live, where our office is organized. And I think that it's a very understandable sign that USA is having Belarus as one of the priorities. They wouldn't open the office to work with democratic rules. It's Belarusian office. I mean, Belarusian USA office of USAID. It's not for Lithuania. It's for us. So we are grateful for all the assistance that the USA was providing us for these 4 years. And USAID is providing assistance to civil society, first of all. So our priorities here regarding assistance is media. Media extremely important. We have to fight with huge propagandistic machine who want to poison minds of Belarusians, who are poisoning minds of our European partners, and societies. They trying to persuade them. Why should you help Ukrainians? Why should you help Belarusians? Live your comfortable life. Don't interfere. So it's not your issue. And alternative media, and the world media have to explain, what is good and what is right and what is wrong. So, and the alternative media is the only source of information for Belarusians inside the country. We are looking for new formats, how to talk to young generation, how to talk to pensioners, we're using TikTok, Instagram, all this we are using all these possibilities to reach all the groups of people in the country. So extremely important. Media, bloggers, not only like big outlets, but also bloggers who become famous and people listening to them. So also for promoting Belarusian language, culture. We are using media for this. So media, civil society. We need to support all these young or old initiatives, who are working so hard in different directions. It's human rights defenders, extremely important to support our political prisons and promote Belarusian humanitarian disaster over the world. Cultural initiatives. We have so many people of culture who had to flee Belarus because of repressions. And so as we need to promote Belarusian culture, to the world, we need to support these people. So it's cultural initiatives. It's about our artists, our poets, it's about Belarusian schools. So NGOs, media, human rights defenders. It's also scholarships. Scholarships is so extremely important, to provide our young people possibility to study in European or American universities, because what we see now, again, because Belarus became country co-aggressor, number of scholarships decreased, so on and so forth, and we see for the first time of our history, more students from Belarus go to study in Russia than to Europe. We can lose the whole generation who will be brainwashed by Russian narratives there in Russia. We have to provide more possibilities for Belarusians to travel, to keep connections, with the democratic world. And so scholarships, internships, this is what we are supporting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What is the extent of your support in the U.S. Congress? Because I haven't heard anything about what's going on in the U.S. Congress during congressional elections.
We have several very dedicated senators. It's Senator Durbin, Senator Shaheen, Sullivan, yeah, thank you, Denis. So, who are keeping Belarus, on agenda? There were several hearings regarding Belarus humanitarian situation and political situation. So, very often now, Belarusian issues discussed somewhere together with Ukraine. So our advocates, in the Congress, they also advocate for Ukraine. They understand, the connection. So, and of course, I'm calling our Belarusians who live here, to address, to Congress more often, to write letters. As you said, it is working here. It's not Belarus, it's working here. The more letters, you will send, go and meet your representatives. It also works. It's so important. But yeah, maybe we are not in the highest priority, but we have good people whose hearts, with Belarusians.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, while we wait for the next question from our group here, I will share a question that has come from one of our audience members remotely. I am a clinical mental health counselor. Belarusian dissidents must be under considerable psychological stress due to their individual situations. My question is this: what mental health services are being provided for dissidents, both in Belarus and abroad?
It's absolutely rightful question, because people who suffered from repressions, people who went through prisons or detentions, interrogations and tortures, they might be broken after this, because KGB is extremely cruel. They are making to Belarusians such cruel and awful things that even not everybody ready to tell about this. And psychological assistance is also one of the priorities of psychological consultations, are provided to Belarusians in Lithuania and Poland, first of all, because most Belarusians live there. And people need psychological and physical rehabilitation. So we are paying so much attention to this, and such programs are supported by USAID also and European funds. I saw, and also our military volunteers, who came from the war in Ukraine, they're also psychologically, very exhausted. So alongside physical rehabilitation, we need psychological. So we have it, yeah.
Hello, my name is Dan Pokuzelski. I'm a commissioner here at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago, and I wanted to ask a question regard to the environment. When you look at Belarus, a land of beautiful wetlands, forests, home of the Belovetskaya Pushta, the last place in Europe, along with Poland, where you actually have bison. Unfortunately, because of the Soviet legacy, Chernobyl, and the continuation by the Lukashenko regime of the environmental and ecological devastation by the Lukashenko regime, what can be done to try to help reverse all of this destruction that's happened of the natural environment in Belarus? Thank you.
Thank you that you are paying attention to this issue, because behind this political catastrophe and humanitarian in Belarus, many people even don't think about this. And we see now how Lukashenko is trying to earn money, for violence, for cruelty, for supporting Russia in this war. They are selling our natural resources. They're selling our woods. They cut tons of woods and sell it, to gain money. And we have activists who are working on these issues. They're called, I suppose, green activists, something like this. They are thinking about green economy. They're thinking about future of environment. So I fully trust them, and that they are already investigating what will be done after changes. And I think that they're working with international programs and explaining them that after changes we will need their support as well, giving them plans, discussing this. So this field is covered. But now we see how Lukashenko is selling not only our natural resources, but also our independence, to Russia, our sovereignty. So this is the person who doesn't take care about Belarus, about nation, but only about his power. And he's ready to sell, but only to stay where he is.
Дякую.
Дякую.
Hi. Hi, thank you so much for being here. For Belarusians who live in United States and for Americans as well, what can we do to help your cause, if anything?
So first of all is to promote Belarusian cause, to keep American leaders aware of the situation. Our diaspora is a very strong voice here. So be active, show your presence in the USA, explain to the people through different events, why Belarus is important, why it has to be one of the priorities for the USA. Second, to help those who are in need. Our people are writing letters to political prisoners. They are donating money to different human rights initiatives who have access to political prison, like physical access. We had so many wonderful initiatives since 2020. There were people in the USA who managed to buy food parcels for Belarusian families of political prisoners inside the country. Then Lukashenko ruined this system, and many have been detained for this. So solidarity is criminalized, as I said. Also to participate in rallies, organized rallies, showing, being visible, for the USA, going with our white, red, white flags, explaining to people who pay attention to this, what is Belarus, why it's important. So, sometimes you think that you doing, and there is no result. But I really grateful to the people who, even not seeing this very fast and visible result, they continue to do, because only like consistency of actions matter. And I'm also trying to give example to people who not giving up.
Thank you.
I'm going to take two more questions. You
Hello.
get the second to last.
Hello. Thank you so much for coming today, and thank you to the Chicago Council on Global Affairs for organizing this. So my kind of question was that it seems that a lot of kind of these meetings and a lot of this is focused on the moment when Belarus actually comes to revolution or comes to, this change that makes it democratic. So my question is kind of, how's that moment going to look like? Is it going to be something like 2020 where, something like an election triggers these protests, or do you think it could be something even militarily speaking? I mean, you mentioned how in Ukraine, Belarus has volunteers like Kalinovsky Regiment, which are fighting actively for Ukraine. So can they maybe, participate or have some role in that revolution?
It's very difficult to predict which scenario will take place, in Belarus, because it might be different triggers. It might be victory of Ukraine, or something might happen inside Belarus. Something might happen in Russia that will cause, a wave of uprising in my country. What we have to know is that at that moment, we have to have a strong community. We have to have strong alternative institutions of power. We have to have strong support from democratic world, to take this moment of opportunity, and to come to power. I want changes in Belarus happen peacefully. I really don't want Belarusians to use any violence in the country, because we're a peaceful nation, and peaceful changes are more consistent. I'm absolutely showing this. But taking situation in the region, our military volunteers, very brave. They're a huge threat to Lukashenko. I can't predict the development of the situation. So we will see what people will be ready for, but it might be through uprising on the streets. Maybe the moment will be that there will be no necessity even on the revolution, because it will be black swan, or something else. But people have to be prepared internally, to participate in changes when the moment comes. Not to, and that's why it's so important, to talk to people, to explain what's going on, to see how Belarusians all over the world support, and Belarus, and will support them at this moment of opportunity. So there is no plan. For all these 4 years, people demand, show us plan, give us plan. It's impossible to do this. We have strategy, but plan, it can't be written now, because you have to write millions of plans then.
Thank you. Живе Belarus.
Живи вечно.
I'm going to ask a somewhat related and very important question that has come in from our online audience. In the war in Ukraine, Putin has threatened to use nuclear weapons, and Ukraine has warned Western leaders that Putin threatens Ukraine's nuclear infrastructure. Given Belarus's proximity to Ukraine, does this scare you? Do you think Western leaders are taking this threat seriously enough?
It's a pity to admit that we don't know how dictators will act. They don't have limits, and very often I hear from experts that, Putin can't lose. if he sees that he is losing, he might use nuclear weapon, But now they're using this nuclear narrative to blackmail, to threaten. That there is threat that a nuclear weapon will be in Belarus. We are not sure that it's still there or not. So Putin want to bring nuclear weapon to Belarus, first of all, to have opportunity to blackmail our Western neighbors and America, then to anchor presence of Russia in our country for many, many years ahead. Loss of Belarus for Russia it will be disaster. They always have seen Belarus as a lie, and people want changes. And with deployment of nuclear weapon, they just tie Belarus even more to Russia. It will be very difficult to get rid of nuclear weapon after this. So this is how Lukashenko is selling our independence. And I think that attention to deployment of nuclear weapons in Belarus is not very high, though it's not normal, I suppose, because after 1990s we got rid of our nuclear weapon in exchange of security guarantees. From the USA, and now when there is a threat of deployment of nuclear weapon, it's the strongest of this world are keeping silence. So it's looks not very good from a point of view of Belarusians. But of course, as I said, we never know how dictators will behave. But their task now is to threat politicians with this possibility and change, behavior, poison minds of people, and people start think, okay, maybe we'll live with our comfortable life, don't interfere, and everything will be fine. But appeasement of dictators never work. Dictators perceive any hesitation or any undecisiveness as weakness, and they see, again, it's about Ukraine, and Belarus, when they see that powerful countries are hesitating to give a weapon or not, to let use this weapon or not, it's emboldened dictators, and they cross red line after red line, testing how far they can go, and without any answer. And of course, they are threatening with nuclear weapon because they know that it influences minds of people. So I think that people. It's this threat is not the reason why we have stopped fighting with dictators. Dictators making alliances very fast, learning from each other, supporting each other in military issues. But democracy has teeth. Democracy has instruments how to influence dictators, how to fight with dictators. But sometimes, this decision, there is not enough political will, or there are maybe no strong leaders who can say decisive no to dictators, to be consistent, to be brave. And dictators see it.
Last question.
Hello, Svetlana. My name is Alex, and I just have a question about. Do you remember some time ago you discussed with Department of State the possibility to prolong the validity of U.S. visa for Belarusians? Do you have any updates on them? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, visa issue is one of the most urgent and painful, because I think that we have to raise this mobility of Belarusian people, to give people opportunity to travel easily, not to stand long queues, and in hope to get long-term multiple visa in Belarus. It's really restrict many opportunities for Belarusians. And of course, we raised the issue with the USA about at least giving visas to Belarusians for longer period. But there is bureaucracy, there are some restrictions. It's like bilateral relationship if Belarus opens visa for 1 year, so the USA have to have the similar response also 1 year. Though I explained to our democratic partners that it's the time for non-orthodox approach. It's time for for strong decisions. We have to look constantly what dictators are doing, and we will behave in some frames. Many maybe laws have to be rewritten because the situation is different. Many approaches have to be reconsidered because the situation is different. Many laws don't correspond, to the time. We continue to advocate for the questions of visa. People of America, of course, care about American visas, but most of Belarusians they flee mostly to Europe because it's near country, and we're asking for our partners to give more visas to упростить, to simplify procedures, for Belarusians. Because again, returning to our students, for example, very often our students have possibility to study abroad, but they can't get visas. It's like some stupid rules, and they go to Russian universities. They grab them, with pleasure. So our task is to isolate regime, but don't isolate people. Don't punish people. Open borders, give more visas, give more possibilities for Belarusians. Because how people can strive for democracy, how people have to understand advantages of democracy if they have never seen it, if they have never felt it, if they have never, breathed fresh air of free world. So more opportunities. We have to spread democracy in the minds of people. So to give alternative to this Russian world for people to see what it is, to travel. And of course, it's a huge difficulty for relatives of those who fled, because you can't live without hugging your mom for 4 years. It's so important for moms and dads and children to come and see those who can't return to Belarus. But again and again, it's like, полоса препятствий, help me, please. Yeah, so it's difficult, and but we continue to work, explain. It might take time, and but we don't stop.
Please join me in thanking Svetlana Tianovskaya.